Hi folks, my name's Jeff Rugrock and I'm your guide to all things code related this semester. Just want to do a quick video to explain to you the difference between codes, regulations, and standards. They are ever so slightly different. The code, by and large for this course, is related to the Ontario Building Code Act. This is an act that tells um, tells us who's responsible for what areas. So it's developed by elected officials, and it might say something along the lines of municipalities are in charge of inspecting and making sure that the code is adhered to. Regulations uh, and the accepted solutions that fall under them. The regulations, this is developed by tradecraft professionals, and by and large, this is where the rubber hits the road, and it tells you what you'd like to accomplish with each of your plumbing systems and how you might accomplish that. So accepted solutions. The the Canadian Plumbing Code very much mimics the Ontario regulations. So the Ontario regulations, very similar to the Canadian Plumbing Code, and it's what you will write your exam on if you'd like to be able to work across the country with one license. So you'll write your license in Ontario and you could work in Alberta. And that's called the Red Seal certification. The main difference between these two are the numbers. When you're looking at your code books, I have a sample layout here. There are divisions within the code and parts. For the most part, we will be dealing with part 1.4, terms and definitions. This is essentially our dictionary. If there's ever a term you're unsure of, you can look it up here. There's also symbols in here as well. Division B, there's a number of things in here, including plumbing facilities, which tells you how many toilets you might need in a restaurant, or in a hospital, or in a school. You have the Ontario version of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and that's barrier-free design. You'll find that in part 3. Then there's home base, which is part 7, plumbing. That's where we spend most of our time, and then an added bonus, part 8, sewage systems. The regulations are laid out, or the accepted solutions are laid out in this pattern throughout the book. I would suggest you use this pattern as page numbers, although there are page numbers as well. But if you're looking for a code, you simply seek a part number first, then the section, subsection, article, and then once you're down to the sentence, clause, and subclause, so that's the bracketed number, a bracketed lowercase letter, and then the subclauses are in Roman numerals. This one has Roman numeral 1. This is where the rubber hits the road, and you'll find that most of the information you need is here, where the article is more like a caption or a topic. That's the Dewey classification system, Dewey Decimal. Standards are a little bit different. You'll find them throughout the code book, but they often refer to organizations such as the CSA, which is a third-party manufacturing standard. American Society of International Association for Testing and Materials, ASTM. That's another very similar organization, and they will approve materials of all different sorts. You will find standards also in the code, and this does depend a little bit on how you read it, but for me, I find it in defined terms under trap standard, and what that means is that trap is part of a fixture. It's part of a fixture, therefore it'll be certified to these by these organizations. Anyway, so that's trap standard. Materials and equipment. So these are more like complex assemblies. So a waste fitting for your bathroom sink might have a dozen different parts, and it'll be certified to one of these standards. Basic materials such as copper tubing. If you don't see the letters B88 on a piece of copper water tubing, it's not certified, do not use it. It really is that simple. We're not responsible to the standards other than ensuring that the materials we use are labeled and approved and that we install them correctly. That's it. See you next time. That was it for your codes, regulations, and standards explanation.